Hey YouTube, it's the Dark Apprentice again. Today we're going to be talking about where you start with the suit of armor. So, research, research, research. I cannot say this enough. If you do not know what the Armor Archive is, please go to the Armor Archive. There's a wonderful guy there named Mac. His real name is Robert McPherson. I believe he is one of the best armorers of our time. And trust me, he knows his shit. Especially the one thread of anything on this form that you need to look at. It's called Dusting Out the Cobwebs. He had started a suit about 6 years ago. Did not finish it because he hurt his elbow. Well, he decided that it's time to finish it. He's going to document the whole process. So what he did not already have done, he documented. And there's discussions in there. There's great pieces of information that you really need to know. The second thing, always work off your originals. Always. Don't copy somebody else's. Because we all know a copy of a copy is a bad thing. And we all know where a copy of a copy gets you. Well, at that point, the big thing I can say when you look at, try to find your own suit. Try to find the suit that you want. But make sure it's within your skill set. Or a skill set that you can learn by making the suit. I'm going to go a little bit crazy on this one. Remember, like I said in the last video, do not do German Gothic if you do not have experience doing fluting. Especially at first suit. The other thing is, you really want to look at where do you start. Draw the whole thing. Every single piece. I'm not saying like each limb. I'm saying draw the legs. Draw the breastplate, the backplate, the cuirass, how everything fits together. Do that project. You really want to because you'll learn a lot of things because this is all about training the eye. Do it all full scale. You need to train the eye to see the shapes that are really there because nothing is flat. Biggest complaint about the SCA? Too many flat things as well as things that are too rounded. The shape is either there or it's not. And it's always somewhere in between what people really think you. I would highly suggest if you can afford it, go look at the real stuff, please. You will be astounded what you haven't seen in pictures because there's something called lens distortion. Things you really don't want to deal with. So, I'm personally going to start off with the feet, which is called the Sabatons, because armor is like a layer. It's like a layering process. Sorry, I cannot talk today either, apparently. With this suit, the Sabatons are actually attached to the greaves. I'm just going to make the Sabatons first because it's the easier tutorial that I can walk you through. The greaves are actually really hard. But as far as time-wise, I can get this video cranked out somewhat fast for you guys. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how to pattern it, how to cut your metal, and it's like kind of, because I've never done Sabatons before, so this is going to be a little learning experience for me. So you guys are going to see my mistakes as well as my successes. And we'll see, you'll be learning along with me. Alright, first things first. You need something to pattern off of. Something you're going to be wearing. I'm not going to be wearing these boots. Yes, they are actually boots. Go all the way up above my knees. This is going to be late 16th century type of stuff. Toes are not exactly historically accurate, which I was fudging a little bit with that. This is my first run of making a pair of boots. Hugo Serrano has helped me out with these. These are actually pretty much the same boots that Steer Car from Antier was using. It's off as his lasts. But anyways, maybe I should actually focus on the camera. really what it comes down to is nothing on the human body is symmetrical. If you look, the reason why I have these boots sitting here with the sunlight is because you can actually see the high point. The high point is right here. This is where your big toe is going to be. This is where the top of that bone is that goes up to your ankle. Also, if you notice, the actual main part of your ankle going up into your shin, this is where, pretty close to where your center crease on your greaves is going to be as well. So this is something that you're going to have to consider. And if, you look over here, you have all this. Thinking with these Sabotons is that with how I've drawn them out, my center crease is actually going to be a little bit more towards the center because of how my legs are and how I'm going to have to build my greaves. We'll talk about where we're going to lay that crease in the greaves, but I'm going to have to lay it about right here, because you can see where the seam is at. This is about approximately centered down my leg. Might meet it in the middle, but we'll see. One of the big things that with a lot of armor, when you're looking at the actual lames that go in between things, so each one of these plates that goes down is called a lame. They tend to have what's called a gothic arch shape. And that's where things get a little bit kind of weird, because the feet are shaped a little bit weird. So this way, you're going to have a little bit of a modified gothic arch shape, where you're going to have your high point. It's going to arch down. Then here, it's going to arch down, but it's going to arch out a little bit further. It may end up being more symmetrical. We'll have to see. That's going to be the big one. So, I guess the next part, without further ado, is I'm going to grab some tinfoil. Trust me, tinfoil is your friend when you do not have experience patterning a certain piece. Alright, so as you can see, got a little bit of tinfoil patterning going on here. I went through, kind of decided that by looking at the pictures, which I'll end up posting up on here, it looks like, because about right here's the back of the heel, it looks like the split in the greave is about just in forward of, because my ankle bone's about right here, so it looks like the split's about right there. So from the split, well, from basically your seam in your greave, you got the piece that comes forward. Now in these, because the Sabatons, which goes in the front here, they attach to where, let's pull this back a little bit, where you have your shin that comes up, the front part of your greaves. So that piece ends up rolling up through here, and then this is kind of like what I would call the main central piece of, at least with this pair of Sabatons, because here's basically a central plate. From here, there's lames that meet up to this Gothic arch curve of your greave. So there's a pivot point here, and then all these lames here are pivoted off of each other from here as they stack up. Then there's another central point that with this top lame up here that attaches to the center of that greave as well. So I decided that the best part is you start off with what is going to be your starting point. I decided to go from the center. So I can work up, get my upper limbs done, then work on from here down towards the toe. Now I mentioned always draw everything that you do. Sorry, this thing's got a little crunched up. Got animals. This is a rough top view. As you can see, I had roughly traced out my foot, but I had ended right where the Sabatons were going to end as well. Also had given myself room. Sorry, it's a little bit hard on the camera. Gave myself a little bit of room. Make up for the leather. This is because I was just drawing it. And you can see where I have all these extra lines and everything because I was trying to figure out what I wanted with my spacing, and I was working off of pictures of the originals that I was going to be working off of. So if you get a better little idea, I may revise the curves in the toe cap here as I go. This is at this point all theoretical, but here, this is the main central plate. That's right here. Up here is where there's going to be the few extra plates that I have not drawn in yet. But I figured out with my foot measurements and then kind of, transposing out on some measurements that were on my reference picture, this spacing is about approximately 1 inch. There's going to be a little bit of space of underlap. These upper limbs are actually going to, underlap the center plate. So this line will actually stay the same, but when I actually do my final pattern, I have to take into account, I want a little bit extra so you can get your downward flex and also where it's going to be able to really flex up. If you end up going to the Armor Archive and you look at through Max Thread, dusting off the cobwebs, you'll find the pictures that he has of his Sabatons and how much downward flex and really how much toe flex he's got, in the upward curve. You don't technically need to have all of that, but it's really nice. So then what I did is I sat there, kind of crinkled everything on, drew my lines. You can see I got some extra lines in here where I started kind of getting some reference points. Then I just decided to cut it. Well, drawing, let me get this picture out of your way. Drawing on this foot's not easy. As you can see, it is not symmetrical. You got this little kind of curve here that's going in the wrong direction. You do not want that. Also, this really should be somewhat symmetrical to this side because you want, from the top visually, you want this point to line up on your foot with this point. Your pattern might not necessarily be that way. Same thing with how far it goes back, the same angles. You want this all to be visually underfoot symmetrical. Now, so I futzed around with it a little bit, ended up tracing it onto, well, another piece of foil. Did a little bit of modifications, made a little bit of notes, decided, okay, this is pretty damn close. So then what I did is, you can see here, stuck it on there, made some more notes for myself where I made notes of this height needs to be symmetrical to this side. Well, this side right here. As well as this length. And it needs, because here is where the floor would be, right? Where your bottom of your foot. Notice how right here I said add a 1/4 inch because I need to add a little bit more on there. When I cut the steel, generally something like this I will cut a little bit longer. So then what I did is I sat there, did a rough tracing. I knew that this side was okay because I actually flipped it over and checked it on the inside of my foot, and it works good. So I had straightened out this line to where it's a better curve, traced this section out, traced all the way over here. Then you notice how I had to add 1/4 inch. Well, I traced out my line, and then I added a 1/4 inch. Also, when I patterned this up, I noticed that this was actually, let's see if we can get this for you, this was actually slanting at an angle like this. Even though that arch is going to be a little bit angled, I want to make sure that I have too much metal. Remember, having too much metal, especially in this area, is either than not having enough. If you don't have enough, you got to weld it on. You got to sit there and try to, get it all homogenated. Not a good time. So I decided to add on, well, this center point, this bottom point in the back is good. If I trace out the line here and it's too far forward, let's just add on extra just to make up for that. So then I took my pattern piece for my length and everything, flipped it over, and lo and behold, that 1/4 inch marked up fairly well. Sat there, traced out. That line actually traced out pretty well. Then I decided to just copy the same arch. And if it ends up being a little bit too much material, I can always trim it down. Well, at this point, I would say that it's time to transfer this pattern to some steel. Except that usually what I do is I'll transfer it to manila folder. I'm all out of manila folder currently. I might make a trip to the store sometime soon, but as far as what I'm going to get done today, normal computer paper is going to be totally fine. And I was actually surprised by how symmetrical this pattern actually turned out. I thought there was going to be a lot more deviation, but it actually turned out to be where it looks like we're going to be working off a pretty symmetrical pattern. Alright, I will get back to you soon.